This is your brain on capitalist extortion. Yeah, it's just normal. It's just how we are. Like that cliche about fish not really knowing what water is and us not thinking about air. It's just every day. It's, how often do we think about the fact that we have to pay someone to exist on the planet? We have to pay someone to sleep somewhere. We have to pay someone to live. And I've been making that point for decades, and there is a mistake on the other side too. So first, I'll make the point, which is the point I'm trying to make, which is that if it's crazy to have, I used to have this sort of habit or hobby of asking people if they like their jobs. About 90% would say no, and so I would ask, what does it mean when the vast majority of people spend the vast majority of their waking hours doing things they don't want to do? That's a crazy way to live. And I think that absolutely is crazy. And there is a certain set of people who take that to mean that we should all be able to sit around doing nothing all the time and use it as an excuse for why they should stay at home and play computer games and smoke weed. And that they don't seem to realize that there are a few people who can be parasitic off of a system. Yes, one can dumpster dive food, but at some point, someone grew that food. And for you to dumpster dive, there has to be the larger system. So a few of us can parasitize off the system, but it wouldn't work for the system as a whole. And this is where it gets, for me, really interesting, because I think that what capitalism is, where you have to contribute or you die, is a toxic mimic of a real community where you have to contribute or the community dies or the community falls apart. That in a healthy functioning community, people recognize that if no one goes to gather some food, there will be no food gathered. But there's a difference between gaining food that will be consumed by you and those you have some sort of relationship with, and working for the man, as they say. And one of the differences is that within a healthy functioning community, you have relationships with the people in the community, and the people in the community should have at least some of your best interests at heart. And that argument can't really be made for Coca-Cola or other large institutions, large distant institutions that don't have that familial or friendly or communal connection. So when I have said that the vast majority of people spend the vast majority of their waking hours doing things they don't want to do, that is not meant to imply that nobody is ever supposed to do anything that they don't want to do. And it's also not supposed to imply that nobody ever has to do any work. It's supposed to imply that we ask ourselves, to whom we are going to give our lives in service. Because when you are, I mean, I fully recognize that within the system, you got to pay your rent. And I just rolled my eyes because it's really hard, because we got to pay our rent, and that means giving it to the landlord, which means giving it basically to a capitalist. And that, I recognize, we live in the system. We don't live outside the system. We got to figure out a way to do that. But the reason I rolled my eyes is because part of what the system has done is, in consuming everything about us and consuming our perceptions, is that where I live, I attempt to pay not only the rent that I have to pay to live here in the system, but I attempt to pay rent to the land, and I attempt to pay rent to, I attempt to make the land happy that I live here. And part of the problem isn't that we have to serve someone. The problem is that we have been so wrapped up in this system that we end up serving the system and not our communities.